Hey, hello everybody. Welcome to Factory Fridays at Pacific Northwest Aerospace Alliance. And want to let you know we are recording this session. And keep that in mind as you ask questions or reveal any information about your own companies. But a couple ground rules as we get started here. It's going to be a little different than it has been in the past. It's been a different platform before. And we're trying this one out for ProShop today, but just submit your questions in the window and we'll get to your questions as we go. We'll keep an eye on that. We do want to make this interactive as possible, and so your questions are really important as we go. So please don't be shy. You're gonna have questions and other people will have the same questions. So when you ask it, it's for the benefit of everybody. And today we're gonna be introducing Paul Van Meter, and he's gonna introduce his team. And
hey,
before we get to that really quick, Paul, sorry about that. I do want to say thank you to our corporate circle sponsors for Boeing and Snohomish County, Painfield, Triumph Group, Capture 3D, CG Tech, Vericut, Orion, Baker Hostetler, Impact Washington, Moss Adams, AJAC, Deal, Aviation, McDonald Miller. These are the folks that help us keep these rolling, and we've been able to do this pretty consistently for the last few months. And so I just want to do a shout out for those corporate circle sponsors. And Paul from ProShop.
Thanks, Dale. Thanks, Dale. You guys hearing me okay?
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah, you sound pretty good. And it'd be great to hear a bit more about ProShop. You introduce your company, tell us what you guys are all about. And I'm going to go ahead and turn off the screen.
All right. So yeah, we're longtime members of the PNAA, big supporters. I think it's a great organization here in the Northwest and around the country. And so today, well, Dale was asking me about doing a sponsor webinar at some point, and I said, well, why don't we combine that with a Factory Friday, because it's such a cool idea. And we decided to come check out Trulife Engineered Solutions here in Bellingham, Washington. And this is actually the old facility that Kelsey and I started when the Bungies back in 1997. So sort of our old stomping grounds here. And so today, Dagan's going to give us a tour. Dagan, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Thanks for having us. Dagan Maxey here. Welcome to Trulife Engineered Solutions. We'll kind of give you a little tour through the facility here and show you what we got going on and how we have ProShop integrated into our system.
All right.
That's great.
So we are in their front lobby here. I'll start by showing you just some of their sample parts. So they definitely specialize in doing aerospace parts, flight parts, a lot of space stuff. There's a cool part that's a door latch for the 787. But they also have a complete line of orthopedic devices for their medical device division. Take a quick peek here. So lots of very cool parts made out of machines, titanium and carbon fiber and all sorts of cool stuff. So a little bit about Trulife. So we were just testing this, and the Wi-Fi isn't super strong throughout the shop, so hopefully we'll do our best, and we do have to wear masks for part of this. So let's go in and check it out. I'll lead us in.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll walk here to the front offices where normally we'd have a lot of people in here. But with the recent circumstances, we have almost everyone working remotely. And so normally what we'd have is our customer service here at the front desk. They're all working remotely. So when we get a request for quote, we'll come in, log that right into ProShop. Our estimating team right over here will then build the estimate. The estimate is really kind of the foundation for how we will flow work through the shop once it's confirmed as a purchase order. And from there, it's going to kind of flow through to purchasing. We actually have a material purchaser and an outside process purchaser. We found that outside processing can be so specialized and such a difficult part of the process that having a dedicated person do that has really been helpful. From there, it's going to flow into planning. Now, we built most of the actual manufacturing plan in the estimate as we were quoting the job. So once that transitions into a purchase order, these guys are really going to be finalizing the details of that plan. Currently, we have one terminal set up, so we have a kind of a rotating cast of planners that will come in throughout the week. We have 4 full-time manufacturing planners, one of which is allowed to be in the office at any given time. So right here, you can kind of see we're interacting with ProShop, finalizing the manufacturing plan. So each operation is detailed out there on a work order. It's going to tell us exactly what material we want to buy, what resources we want to flow this job to, what's going to happen to it after we machine it, and then allow us to maintain traceability and track our inspection right there. So he's actually finalizing a part level, it looks like right there.
I just want to confirm, Dale, are you guys hearing us okay?
Yeah, we can hear you well, Paul. Yeah.
Yeah, you're really clear.
Let's see how it goes in the shop.
Yeah, so out onto the floor, we're going to put our mask on. That might change things a little bit. From planning, our work is then queued out to our programming team. So you can see our programming office in there. Similar to our planners, we're having one at a time, kind of station themselves in this room. They're using Mastercam and basically programming the part to run on our CNC equipment. So once they get the part programmed, they then come up with the inspection plan. We require that every tool that finishes a part is going to be inspected, and that each position in a machine is going to be inspected. So they'll detail that in ProShop and then queue it out here to get manufactured. So we'll turn around here.
The one thing you'll notice about these desks that they're working on is they're all sort of stand-up, sit-down desks, and they're all on wheels. So we designed these desks years and years ago, and they actually move them out onto the factory floor when they're doing a first-time setup or helping a machinist that's doing that, right? So just one of the lean initiatives we had implemented years ago. So this next area is the production mill area. And let Dagan tell you about that.
Yeah, we kind of have 4 main bays, the first of which is our production mill area. Down this row, we have a variety of different mills. We have 3 horizontal mills that's doing some of our more complex work, allows us to access parts from various angles. We then have 5 vertical mills kind of in a row and one behind you here where we do a lot of standalone, smaller work envelope type parts. Oftentimes, our operators are doing what we call bar to box. So they'll be cutting their own raw material. They'll be loading the parts into the machine. You can see right here at the workstation, we're almost completely paperless thanks to ProShop. So we have the prints open at the workstation. The inspections being done at the workstation. The parts will actually be washed and then put directly into the box right at their workstation. An example of the type of parts that we're working on. A lot of aluminum. This particular part's on a horizontal because it's got some side features. And then they're packaging it up and going.
So yeah, in the bar to box concept, so there's a plate of raw stock, and then it's going into the machine for a couple of different work holdings on the various tombstones. Coming off, getting inspected right here on ProShop. We can probably even pull up an inspection form here. Yeah, so here's an example of an in-process inspection that's happening. It's flagging the dimensions in yellow that might be a little closer to the limit, and telling him if anything is bad. And then, like Dagan said, packaged up, washed and rinsed, packaged up in a bubble bag, and put in the box, completely packaged, ready to ship to outside processing.
So we just saw the Traveler.
What's that?
So we just looked at the Traveler, the job Traveler.
Essentially, yes, that was the Traveler. Yep, there's no paper Traveler.
Yes.
There's no paper travelers. Every one of our workstations has a computer with ProShop on it. They'll usually walk up, read their tie-in that's in ProShop, see what job they're running, and then read the work instructions right there in ProShop. Tells them everything they need to know. You can see some other examples as we kind of continue on here. We have 2 machines here at the end that we'll stop and take a look at.
Yeah, maybe show how they identify product itself too. You know, when you're looking at a pile of parts, you know,
Sure.
how are they actually identified? Because there's no paper involved.
Okay. We have two machines here that are flowing together. This is now our lathe department. We're running our first operation here. He's got all of his instructions open for that operation. This is actually what we call the sequence detail. So he's looking at all the tools that are coming in and everything that's going to happen to the part in each operation there in the machine. The part's then going to flow over to this operation. As he's running, he's inspecting at his workstation, washing the parts, getting them ready for packaging.
Yeah, and then again on the screen, there's the Traveler. You guys hearing us okay in this area?
Yeah, it's good. Thank you.
I'm
Right.
still hearing you pretty good. I'm not seeing any comments, so I think we're good to go.
You can see our innovative shower curtain solution here to keep a 6-foot distance between people. We do have, this workstation is not currently running today, but this is a really great example of, we usually flow these two machines, one operation to the next operation, with the operator running both machines, blending the parts, masking the parts. He actually blasts the parts in a blast cabinet, inspects the parts, and then boxes them up.
So one of the more important aspects about making sure jobs get set up well is getting things prepped and what we call a pre-processing checklist. And so this cell is dedicated enough that they have preloaded tools all ready to go, all labeled for different part numbers they make. And that process is also done over at their fixture setup area, which we'll go take a look at here.
See a couple examples of jobs that are ready to get set up. We pre-process them with the tools in a caddy, we call it. Put the fixtures on the cart, and really anything the operator is going to need to get the setup going. This will wheel directly over to the machine so that they can load these in. And we'll show you over here how we get this set up and touched off.
I know the signal was a little rough when we were testing. How are things looking over here?
No, it's looking good. Thanks for that. Yep.
Awesome.
Great.
It looks pretty good.
This is our tooling area. We have, I think, over 4,000 different cutting tools in our current tool inventory. And we have a dedicated pre-processor who is going to be setting up the tools for the operators so that they can load them into the machine and get going in a relatively quick time frame. He's working with ProShop here. He knows what jobs to set up by looking at the schedule, and he knows what tools are required because they're in what we call the tool master of each job. So he'll open that up. He'll build the tools into what we call a caddy, which you saw, the wooden caddy we have here, and then he'll touch them off using our laser presetter, which integrates directly into ProShop. So he can touch the tool off, hit input, and it's going to load all of our tools and all of their relative tool height into a file that is then uploaded directly into the machine. And that eliminates a lot of operator errors, so they don't have to go touch in their tool heights and make a mistake potentially. It's been a very, very solid improvement to onboarding that. All of our fixturing is stored and cataloged in ProShop similarly.
Yeah, using the fixtures module, all the fixtures, which all have ID numbers, will be pulled off of the correct rack and shelf and position and loaded up onto that cart, along with, if you're doing any kind of standard vise work, they've standardized on Trulife bilock vices, and even have all the things like bolt kits that are all the bolts and hardware that are needed, different parallels of different thicknesses ready to hang in there, ready to go. And they can pull that stuff and get it prepped as efficiently as possible. All right.
So, the next bay is what we call our Trulife medical bay. So when Trulife took over almost 6 years ago, they make a whole line of modular adapters for lower leg prosthetics, and we took on the machining of all the metal components. So this next bay, we kind of turned into that use. We have a couple of pieces of equipment that we bought to do that, and then a few that we got from our sister company. So we have 2 lathes right here that are very, very high volume. We do, in this machining cell monthly, we do 12,000 to 15,000 parts per month. Both of these lathes run almost nonstop. We try to run them continuously, lights out if we can. And then we have one cell system right here, one spindle, but 15 different tombstones that we store in the back that basically will fixture up the job, leave part numbers set up, and we can kind of keep going. If you want to pan over to the machine, we can take a look at it running a little bit here. Like I said, this machine has 15 stations for tombstones in the back, so we leave these jobs set up. There's a robot that schedules and picks up the work holding and moves it into the machine. We can often schedule several parts to run in a continuous fashion, where the operator will then come over and unload parts periodically. Also scheduled, inspected, and with all the work instructions right here in ProShop.
Yeah, I wanted to point out this workstation over here. We see more and more of our customers go into this kind of setup where they have the work order down below, and oftentimes they'll have a drawing up on the second monitor. For a shop floor space, going vertical is pretty space efficient. And you guys still hearing us okay? This is the area that was roughest with the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, the video is a little choppy, Paul, but the audio is coming through clearly. Thank you.
All right.
Hey, Kelsey. Kelsey, could you go ahead and ask some of those questions out loud for the benefit of everybody?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I was just, I was just churning away on them over here, getting them knocked out. But yeah, let me go ahead and just talk a little bit about that. Just to be clear about travelers, when these guys are talking about that, that's definitely talking about some sort of like work order paperwork that would have been standard that is now, non-existent. There is no paper traveling with it, traveling with the job, and instead it's all digital. And then, yeah, in terms of identifying components, I did mention that, but typically you'll see, work order labels that have, work order number, a picture of the finished components, usually a quantity, a part number, that kind of thing that you'd see that would be actually physically attached to the parts, so they're clearly identified. I'll go through a few more, but you guys carry on for a minute and I'll come back to a few more of these.
Perfect. Thanks, Kelsey.
So we just moved here into our CMM room. We have 2 CMM machines used for measuring somewhat complicated GD&T tolerancing on our parts. Looks like we're not currently inspecting anything, but this is where we will flow parts to inspection in process usually. So it's something that we'll do kind of midstream to measure things like surface profile or true position, maybe a tiny to prepare for the glaring call out. We also do all of our calibration in this room, climate control.
Yeah, and all that calibration is also managed inside of ProShop with an equipment module that is used for both calibration and preventative maintenance for any kind of equipment. It sends proactive alerts to the people that are in charge of doing that kind of maintenance activity, and they go grab the devices and bring them in and calibrate them.
Great, thanks. Listen, I'll take another question while you guys are moving on to the next bit. There was just a question about, do operators inspect their own parts? And I think that's very much a choice that companies make individually, but quite often companies choose to have at least a significant set of the in-process inspection done literally at the machine while the parts are being produced. And ProShop supports a methodology where, if you have 10 dimensions to check, on a 10% basis, you might as well go ahead and check one every part and get that actually validated. And then every part gets a little bit of inspection, even if your average over the run is only 10%. So that's definitely something I thought I should say ProShop supports, and lots of good companies are catching defects much, much earlier through that mechanism.
Yeah, and what you're seeing on the screen now is just an example of on whatever the left, this side, is the Calypso software, and on the right-hand side, that's the ProShop work instructions for how this is set up on the table itself. And while there's not a part on there, you can see that that T-square that they have to align the part in the right location. So just another example of visual work instructions. All right, let's go. We're going to go check out the prototype department. We should notice or mention, of course, because this is a Friday, the weekend shift is on, which is a lot smaller in many shops, including here at Trulife. So normally there's a lot more folks here walking around.
Yeah, so like was mentioned, this next bay is comprised of our prototype group. Those are what we consider journeyman level machinists that have Mastercam at their workstations. Usually their work is confined to small quantities with a quick turn. A lot of the administrative planning functions will get bypassed, and these guys will figure out how to make the parts kind of all on their own and turn them quickly. Currently we have 5 full-time prototypers, 1 dedicated to the weekend shift. So he'll be over here programming and machining as he goes. Also within the same bay, we have our production 5-axis. So here's a 5-axis Haas machine and an operator inspecting as it goes. Right up in there.
Yeah, we'll go take a look in the machine, if you can possibly make that out. So this is a big enclosure for a fan for an airplane. I think an air circulation fan. And we can see an example of one of those being inspected. Say hi. So pretty cool part. And there on the screen is their in-process inspection results, like you've seen at many other stations. Oh, and here, by the way, there are some of the job labels. And in these, I believe they even label each individual part. So just print it off on a label printer.
Yeah, Paul, if I could take just a minute, there's been a couple questions in regard to those labels. And I just wanted to, yeah, sorry, I just wanted to say that, those labels that Paul just showed you and are mentioned there, not only identify the work order specifically, but have a little bit of the context of the entire job, including, often a part of the, a picture of the finished part so that people can visually identify exactly what they're working on as well. But the intention is to deliberately not provide information on the labels that would become obsolete quickly, right? So we're trying to show, the limited amount of information that will keep people in the know about what's going on without getting to a situation where you're no longer meeting your AS and ISO requirements for revision control of documentation. So that's why we really cut the line there at a box label like you see there, without trying to go all the way to a level of, what are all the routing steps and who should be doing, that information should all be digital, and then you can maintain it at their correct revision all the time. Yeah, thanks, gents. That's perfect.
So we have another example here of a part that has some pretty detailed work instructions because of some of the cosmetic requirements. We currently have this running on a 5-axis machine. You can see the operator had his work instructions open, and it's going to show him exactly how to process this part. So it's telling him how to load it, how to tap it down, what to do once it's finished. It's going to show him pictures of the finished part, detailed instructions on how to get the part to that state, and so that we can really standardize our work and make sure that our products are looking consistently up to our par.
Hey, Dagan, I had a question for you along that line. One of the main things that I often get questions about when we look at this kind of detail is, what did it take you, like 10 hours to document this? Or is this the kind of process that, with a phone camera and ProShop on your phone, you can do in 20 minutes? Or what are we talking about here?
Yeah, well, first of all, we ask that when we do a setup that we verify that the run description is up to date before we certify the job to run. So this is something that we do every time that we set a job up for a first run, and it happens pretty quickly. We have a camera that integrates right into ProShop. It loads into what we call a camera file holding tank, and they load their pictures. But we also have a process of continuous improvement that we have a constant feedback loop through part development, where each time that we run this job, the operators have the opportunity to identify process improvements that can be integrated right into the run description later on.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, Dagan. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and this one's also a great example of bar to box. You can see we're starting with the pre-cut bar right here. Going into fixturing, it's coming off, of course, the machine complete on the 5-axis, and inspection right over here. And then, as I showed you before, the box with the label and the parts. Sorry, that's sideways on you. The parts bubble wrapped, and even the operator employee number is tagged on there too, so we know which employee made every single part.
Yeah, this is one to touch real quick. This is our newest piece of equipment, just delivered a couple months ago, but this is a 5-axis semi-cell system here. We have 10 pallets that we can load up and basically keep running, pretty automated. One of the reasons why this 5-axis department is running with only one person back here is that we can load all of these parts up, schedule this machine to run, and have it run continuously and lights out. So it's allowed us to become a lot more efficient. We get really consistent part quality, and we're pretty happy with this new addition. So.
Yeah, just for a bit of history, we decided, what year, Kelsey, did we decide to go with a dedicated prototype department? A long time ago.
2002, yep.
Yeah, we were trying to mix prototype jobs in amongst production jobs, and as I'm sure most of you know, that's a really tricky situation sometimes. Wanted to stop and show this. I sent a little LinkedIn video on this. This is one of the lean projects that the crew built years and years ago. So this is a mobile packaging station. Up at the top here, you have different sizes of bubble bags, all with their labels, some plastic bags, the tape gun, a little pull-out shelf, which pulls out, gives you a spot to package, few different sizes of boxes right down below, and that's all sitting right next to this label printer, so you can print off those box labels or packing slips when parts are ready to go.
Yeah, thanks for that, Paul. There was actually a question about that, where and when are labels printed, and I think I said that you should always print labels as soon as you have physical product to trace, right? That's the whole point. You got to identify your product as it goes through the company, and that's an example of that. The other thing that I think people often ask is, why do you have a machinist, packaging parts? That's always a question, and the main answer to that is that typically, if you process a product through its value stream as far as possible in one go, you can actually eliminate more waste than trying to segregate it and move it and then have it sit places. And that's lean philosophy at its best, is try and get that process through as quickly as possible. You could ship those parts we looked at in bubble bags right now. If somebody came and said, hey, we need to get those out to plating, they're ready to go. All those parts, however many you have, are ready to go. So that's one of the value there. And typically we found a lot more than maybe something where you have a little bit of difference in a pay scale between someone who does packaging or machining.
Yeah, also reduces your risk of having your pile of parts knock over and damage each other.
But yeah, there's lots of risk mitigation there. Sorry, I'll let you guys carry on.
All right.
Yeah, we're looking here at our shop P machine. So this is where we take our Trulife medical product, all the aluminum components. After they've been machined, they come back here and get shop P'd. A couple of things. It's going to strengthen the material a little bit, and then it's also going to provide a cosmetic finish so that once we send it out for anodized, they come back looking very uniform. You'll see an example of some of the finished products as we get closer back here to assembly. And then right behind us, we have two larger work envelope machines. We have a large Haas VF7 and a Haas gantry. Gantries used mostly for tooling projects and smaller type of projects that don't necessarily require a lot of coolant. And then we have this big machine here that we do larger hog outs, some machine prep operations, and then we also will load up with kind of a high density of small components as well. We have one other work cell that's currently not running as a result of the current situation, but this is entirely dedicated to one project. This bay and this one machine right here is dedicated to a project that we have directly with Boeing to supply basically a coupon. So we have a 50 taper horizontal mill right here that's tooled up with two vacuum fixtures. Allows the operator to load the raw material into one station and then flip it 3 times with each cycle, so that each cycle you're getting one finished part off and continuing the next part along the progression until you get a finished part. We typically, when this was up and clipping along, we were doing about 10,000 parts a month just through our coupon production cells. So a lot of raw material storage and a lot of challenging traceability to manage, but overall the machining process is pretty simple. And then the next group we have here is our assembly group. So there's some larger tooling type assemblies that we work on consistently, and then we have a lot of just kind of standard aerospace general assembly. So a lot of insert installation. Looks like we're doing some wet install and a little bit of insert installation there. We have a paint booth. A good example of maybe a part. Look up here. To do some insert install after it's been machined. Goes out and gets painted. Comes back, gets a couple of press pins and some inserts. Out the door. And then, in addition to our kind of aerospace general assembly group, we have what we call the Trulife assembly group that is doing all of the final assembly and packaging for the modular adapter line that we talked about. So these guys, once the parts come back from anodized, they head over in this direction, actually. Sorry for that. They get laser engraved so we can put our logo and part number on the part. In this case, we've actually automated one of the assembly functions here. So this is a UR robot that is currently bonding a threaded pyramid to a base. So what it's going to do is pick up the pyramid from a back tray, apply some glue back here, and then thread it down into the base. So I think we package and sell about 2,500 of these a month, and it became clear that automating it would be a pretty slick maneuver. So we tried it out. We were really happy with the results here. The rest of the assembly functions, you can kind of see some examples of the finished parts. A lot of them are just set screws and packaging, but we go as far as put the parts in a package, a label, manual, and then actually get directly out to distribution. So this is kind of the final assembly for a lot of this product. Our sister company will do the complete assembly and of the feet, and then a lot of that will actually get done in a clinic. So that's a good example of a lower leg there.
See lots of shadow boards and sort of lean workstations all set up for just their specific purpose.
We're gonna walk back up to the front. If anyone has any questions, now would be a good time to maybe answer.
You guys still hearing everything and seeing it okay?
Yeah, it looks great, Paul. I had a couple questions I thought I'd bring up as we're going through, as you guys are walking back up. One of the questions was, how do you maintain lot and labor traceability? Obviously, those two things are a little bit separate, but if you guys wanted to just even show a workstation where someone's logged into a job, that might be helpful. But basically, the short answer to that is on the lot traceability. Yes, everything is associated with a work order, but beyond that, ProShop also supports full serialization, which would include individual serialized pieces. Each component has its own serial number, which I think you guys noted there was some area where each part was getting a tag. But also, you could serialize a small batch of parts as an option as well. So the thing about traceability in lot traceability would include completely all the way back to raw material. So when they prepare a document package, and you guys may be headed back up to the final inspection area now, but just taking a look at a completely prepared document package might be a useful thing.
What I wanted to stop for a moment and share here, these are things we built years and years ago. So we did, and Trulife still does, a lot of large flat parts that require vacuum work holding. And these are highly efficient 480 volt little small vacuum pump carts that have an accumulation tank, the electrical stuff, all the plumbing, and these can be wheeled next to any machine that needs vacuum. And all the machines are wired for 480, 220, or 240 and 120 power, so you can plug almost anything they want and keep it nice and lean and make it kind of modular that way.
Yeah, thanks. There's another couple questions here. one thing that someone asked is, is in-process inspection considered final inspection? And I just wanted to address that. Of course, everybody treats that differently, but ProShop in general pushes companies to inspect product as close to the time of creation of the spec as possible. So if you're machining the parts, try and inspect them right at the moment that you're actually producing those parts, because then you have an opportunity to change direction. If you've produced all the parts and catch a defect later, of course you don't have any opportunity, but almost everyone uses at least some level of final inspection. Even if it's not dimensional, right? Even if they're validating that all the inspection dimensions were complete and done, it's definitely the case that final inspection is still an integral part of ProShop, and that often includes that sort of document package. Whether the client needs it or not, there's often a review at the final inspection before product would leave to confirm that everything that was required has in fact been done.
Yeah, and we'll swing by that department in a minute. Well, where we're here right now is in the receiving area, and we won't pull it up on the screen. The receiving guy is out for Friday, but here's an example on the desk of a material cert that comes in with some material. It'll get scanned immediately right here and attached into ProShop right on the vendor purchase order by line item, and that's the beginning of that traceability all the way through final inspection. And then the raw material will just get tagged and then of course move to where it needs to go. Another thing I wanted to point out here is they do a ton of Kanban cards. So when they're getting down to a minimum number of bags or boxes or anything, they'll grab those Kanban cards and go dump them into a little bin to get reordered by the person that does all the MRO type ordering.
Yeah, and that was actually something we deliberately left out of ProShop as an example, because it's much better managed with that kind of system than all the overhead that would be associated with decrementing inventory and trying to keep track of reality. It's like, hey, no, just put in the card at the right spot in the inventory and you can have a fast and efficient reorder mechanism.
So I'll take a little diversion here for a second. This is a fun area. Again, not running on the Friday, but this is a dedicated cell. We got two 5-axis machines that do nothing but these sort of very high-end saxophone mouthpieces made from various types of wood and brass. These mouthpieces go for like $850 a piece, and they're all done with full 5-axis milling, contouring, surfacing, and lollipop cutters. It's pretty high-tech stuff. Here's an example of a finished assembly that has all the components gold-plated and all that kind of good stuff. So
one thing I just want to touch back on that Paul was talking about in terms of tagging material. So there was a whole rack full of raw material there, and people often ask, do we need to put a big label with all the details about the product on there? And obviously you could put some kind of tagged label on there, but really the same principle applies as to what we were talking about with the work orders, which is you don't want that information to be relied upon as the final word. So quite often people would put just a purchase order and line item number, and if you want to do all the traceability, you can go ahead and do that through ProShop by looking up that PO line item, and then you have every detail, including who brought it in, when it was used, all the places it went, just by having that one number.
Thanks, Kelsey. All right, we'll let Dagan explain what's happening.
Yeah, so we're over here in final assembly here. You can see Inspector was doing some dimensional checks. We're doing a lot of cosmetic checks. And then in addition, this is where we're going to finalize and compile and submit our necessary documents. So any of the AS9102 documentation, anything that our customer requires, the cert pack is going to be compiled and finalized here. We do incoming inspection from outside processing, outgoing inspection before we send it out, and then final inspection before it goes to the customer, in addition to the inspection that we're doing at the machines with the operators. So these guys, we currently have 3 of them here inspecting parts, are also responsible for kind of maintaining some of our finished goods inventory for some of the agreements that we have for stocking with our customers, as well as our calibrated inspection equipment that they have down there. And as Paul mentioned, that's all managed through the equipment module of ProShop.
Yeah, when I used to give shop tours, people were always amazed at how small the shipping department was. shipping department's basically one little table and then a couple of shelves for boxes, because things come to this department already packaged, as we talked about earlier, done in process during the manufacturing.
Yeah, and it's a good differentiation from a shipping department where lots of people sort of lump packaging in with that. But in fact, you know, this is truly for shipping, and packaging happens at the most appropriate moment, which is right when the parts need to be protected.
So we're going to head back into the conference room and then I think switch computers here. We can actually kind of see the computer seeing the other computer. So give us a second while we switch microphones here.
Yeah, maybe I'll fill in right here with in terms of a couple of other questions that came along. One of the questions was, you know, is there an RMA system or dealing with warranty parts? And I just want to address that, you know, from a ProShop perspective, there is a full warranty slash RMA kind of service. I've got a bit of feedback. Just going to mute you for a second there, Paul. So yeah, in terms of that, I can share my screen as well to kind of show that, but oh, Paul's got it up there. Yes, there is a full RMA module. Do you want me to share that, Paul?
Sure.
Yeah. So under the, oops, sorry. What's going on here? Oh yeah, right. My apologies. I will show that.
Or we can too.
Is that showing the, yeah.
Yep.
So in the context of this kind of work, you know, you can go ahead and get into the full return authorization module, which has within it, you know, all different kinds of things you would be getting back under any condition, but has the ability to flow straight into the non-conformances module. So if you actually get product back and realize that, in fact, you need to deal with a non-conformance, sometimes you get product back and it's not specifically associated with non-conformance, it's rather associated with, you know, product that's being returned for some other reason. So that's definitely an issue. But then you can also flow directly into the car module if that's really the situation. So you can end up with this, you know, creating a.
Yes, yeah. Go back to the RMA home screen.
Okay.
And go to your history there. It's like 1401. It's all linked up.
Okay, yeah, sure. So this is where an NCR has been created for these, and rework was the disposition. So these have already gone through a rework process. But you can see that it's clear about what work order it's coming from, the client, you know, all of this is detailed on here, as well as being able to then flow through to an RMA. So if you were going through this process, you know, to an NCR, that shows you what the non-conformance was, you know, specifically by detail, and then you can end up flowing through, you know, the subsequent NCRs if there were more items that happened after this NCR was discovered, and then you can flow into the CAR process, right? If we're going to be looking at actually corrective actions, then we've got a full corrective actions module that allows you to take corrective action based on the non-conformance, and it doesn't always come from RMAs. You can do this on anything. But I think that's a more complete answer to, is there something that handles RMAs? So Paul, I'll switch it back to you now and let you carry on from there. So you should be able to take control now.
Yeah, you got camera going.
All right. Perfect, guys, yes.
There you go.
All right, so are there any more active questions right now? Have we gotten to all of them?
You know, we just had a hand up and I think I accidentally turned it off. So if you have meant to have your hand up for a question, can you do that again? And we'll get to you. And
Yeah, I
And
can
Kelsey,
also get a couple other ones here. There's one
Great.
that we get all the time that I think is worth addressing right now. And actually, I'd be interested to hear, Dagan, your thoughts on this. Many people ask us, hey, is this something you can barcode all the way along? And we thought about this, for the last decade, how important are barcodes to us? And there are some specific applications where barcoding is useful. Pick lists of bill of materials is an example where, that's a particularly useful way to go. You're going around selecting items that you're pulling into a bill of materials. But for the most part in ProShop, because of the digital terminals and the complete lack of paper, there isn't a lot of advantage to having a barcode. You type in one number, let's say you're working on work order 125, work order 125, you just type 125 and you get all the information about that. It's actually quite a bit faster than dealing with a barcode scanner, trying to find your barcode, scanning it. And because there's no specific thing, you'd be scanning a label or something like that. It just turns out it's not a huge advantage. So that's something I wanted to just address and talk about the difference between what people might consider manually input as opposed to barcode scanned.
Looks like we had a question about, I don't know if that's one that's finished, if there's a first article, FAI, first article inspections built in.
Yeah,
Maybe
we
that
haven't
was
answered that one yet. You could definitely look a little bit at the first article information and maybe talk a little bit about that. I'll address in session here with what keeps track of material traveling through the shop, and specifically the question was from a secure location to a work location. Like if there's some high value product, you're working with raw materials that are very expensive. We don't have anything that does like RFID, active RFID location or something like that would be physically affixed to product. Although I can see where some specific types of things like that might have use. We do keep track of material, in traveling by allowing those things to be loaded into work in progress onto a work order. So if you were issuing something from a material cage, but you were issuing someone, maybe more than the job needed, but it was a nice bundle, so they need 85 inserts, and instead you issue them a bag of 100 inserts, you can put that bag of 100 inserts into WIP and then use up what you need. And let's say you actually end up using 87 inserts because somebody dropped 2, and just return the 13 you didn't use. So we do have sort of tracking of material in that regard quite thoroughly.
So yeah, I think Kels, for showing, if we're going to show anything about a first article, it might be nice to have your screen so we don't accidentally reveal anything too sensitive here on this end.
For sure, no problem. Okay, I'm just going to change that then, no problem. Let me just take a second there. I just have to change
while you're getting that up, I'll answer the next question. It says, are Cnc files attached within ProShop? And the answer is yes. All files that are related to part numbers or work orders or everything are all managed in ProShop. So when you make a part number in ProShop, ProShop will create a set of file folders for all the files related to that project. So part number with subfolders for drawings, models, G-code, pictures, anything that you might need to attach would all be managed and linked directly into the browser.
Yeah, you can actually see the G-code link right here, right? This is what people would open to browse the managed G-code that we have for that content. One thing we don't do natively is we don't send things out over RS-232 communication, although very few machines, modern machines use that. We don't send them out over those protocols. It would be all network interfaced to be able to do that. Or you can have it available at a kiosk where they would actually send it over an RS-232 interface and just access that directly from here. This one I was going to go for a first article on this, but actually this one hasn't been completed yet. Let's see.
Yeah, work order 160039.
So a good example of where, yeah, maybe I could have barcoded that faster, but
no, they're wrong. I'm trying to do it from memory. I'll look up 41114 part number.
Oh, okay, sure. We'll go at it from the part number angle. Sorry, did you say 440?
No, 41114. No zeros. Yeah, there you go. Your history.
Okay, yeah. So this one here, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So if we
Is
look
it
at
probably the oldest, we got all work orders, the first one at the very bottom. Maybe it's a 14. What year is that?
18,
Oh, it's 18. I was going to way too
way
far
more
back.
recent. Yeah, yeah. So, you
The
know,
first,
taking a look at this, yeah, taking a look at this, you can actually see, for example, that, you know, one of the things we could look at is just a first article master, which is everything that would be associated with this part number. And you can see it's split across multiple different operations in this case, right? So this might be an example of where, you know, we're talking about specific criteria for this component and, you know, initial what we call operator first article inspection, as well as QA, and then a possibility to have a QA second. And you can see things that were near tolerance. And if you mouse over any result, you can see the time, date, person stamp for those results. So you're always clear on exactly who made that inspection and recorded it. And then of course there's, you know, NCRs that can be associated. You can see there's a number of parts affected here. And if I look on that, I double click that, then I get this non-conformance report that's associated with that out of tolerance condition, right? So that's the kind of first article that we have available in ProShop from an input kind of perspective. But then of course, we also go to the full sort of AS 9102, whoopsies, for, you know, the format that would be output to, you know, a particular client that would want this in the AS 9102 format. So that's a bunch on that front. I do have a bunch more questions coming in, so I want to take a look at those. So one of the questions for Dagan for you here is, do you currently have any internal training programs for your employees at Trulife? If so, what types of topics do you cover for them?
Yeah, in fact, that's all managed in ProShop as well. We have each operator will have their own what's called training matrix. And so when an operator is hired, or an entry-level operator, each position will have a defined amount of training IDs and tasks that they're expected to learn. And within there, you can see all of the training records are all there, as well as the description of the training ID. So our supervisors and occasionally some of the managers will do training with operators. You can see, like in this person, Kelsey's personal profile there, he was trained in a variety of positions, it looks like. And it'll tell you the proficiency of the skill that they've been trained in, as well as have a timestamp of who trained them and when.
Yeah, so if we look at an individual training record, these are all the people who have been trained to do this particular task. And of course, you know, this is the user proficiency date for any of that, but you can just mouse on the proficiency and see who actually trained them, or take a look at a complete training record that would be required. You know, this is the person, this is who trained them, this is the certification date, this is the level they received. So yeah, really tracing that all back. And as it turns out, what Dagan was talking about here, you know, it is related directly to company positions I've been assigned, you know, me in this case. But Dagan, you already have for new employees sort of an outline you would use, right, by assigning them positions and then starting them through the training process?
Yeah, each position is defined with a certain amount of training needs that you can see over there. So then as they are hired into a position, we know exactly what tasks and training IDs they need to go through. And we try to progress them through that training as quickly as possible.
Yeah, one of the things that I don't know how much you use this as well, but because of this opportunity to have the position either active, meaning that per the ISO standard, they need to know how to do this entire role, or in training, which is to say that, you know, they're wanting to be in this role, they're wanting to become an assembly technician, but they're not yet really at that level. So from an ISO perspective, the expectation is that they will have still some outstanding items that are untrained, and then you can migrate them into a full position for that. So that's definitely one thing. A few other things on here. There was some questions about, you know, basically what's required in terms of digital equipment to do these digital interfaces. And we do have some recommendations on a bunch of that, but we also have a bunch of client feedback. So we've actually solicited from all ProShop customers a nice list, and Paul can probably provide that after the webinar, of a bunch of different kiosk installations and that kind of thing. Another question on here was, what about EDI exchange, which is electronic data interchange compatibility. EDI, for those who don't know, is sort of a legacy, like 35 years or maybe even 40-year-old method of transmitting data between systems, and it's based on basically plain text kinds of files. And we don't natively try and connect that often with EDI files, although we do have some clients that do ingest a little bit of EDI. There is some questions here, just a second, about profitability, but I also wanted to get maybe this question about ProShop allow for screen timeouts, so that you know, if someone comes along and is you know, coming to a workstation that someone's left for the day, and the issue is, oh geez, has their session just been left open and they've forgotten to clock out? Yes, we have a whole bunch of features now that have come out with our NIST compliance that include things like timeouts. So you can actually set in the configuration page for much of this, you know, some of your NIST compliance levels. Oops, wrong thing. NIST compliance levels. So like we have password configuration, but also we have this follow NIST workflows. And when you enable that, then it'll enable the requirements of the NIST standard to be able to go. I know we're coming up on time here. Let me just see if I can answer one more of these questions. Which is just the profitability. I mean, I think that's a hugely deep topic. And what I'll do is I'll say for the benefit of everyone involved that, you know, there's a lot around progress. How effective have you been while you produce the product? But there's also full capability to look at profitability from a number of different perspectives. You know, standardized kind of profitability, which is baseline, or true net profit calculation. You know, this is exactly what we made, including indirect overhead, which is pretty atypical for processes like this. And in fact, Dagan and I are working on some of the advanced detailed features of exactly how this is all brought together. So thanks for working on that with me, Dagan. I appreciate you you doing that with us.
Thank you.
Hey Kelsey, I've got a couple of hands up here, so I was going to entertain those.
Yeah, great.
I just took off a Zori's mute. And correct me, please tell us your name so we have the proper pronunciation.
Yeah, that's
Zori?
fine. Zohra is my name. Yeah, but that's fine with pronunciation. Yeah, I got questions, two questions. One is regarding the NCR. Is it necessary to print it out for final sign off or no?
No, NCRs are captured. Yeah, are captured directly in ProShop. In fact, Dagan, maybe tell us a little bit about how you trace it, but I know lots of customers will actually go ahead and just write the number of the NCR on a tag, like a big red tag, and they would reference just the number. So they would literally only have this number on the tag, and anybody who wanted data would do that. How do you guys handle it, Dagan?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So first of all, they're generated digitally. So if we identify either a dimension is out of tolerance when they're doing their inspection, ProShop will actually pop up a message that says, do you want to create a non-conformance? And what we'll do there is then tag the part with a tag with the NCR number on that. Oftentimes we will then leave that for disposition from a quality inspector or the quality team, tag with that part.
Right. Okay. Yeah, great.
So only the part is tagged, but the actual form never been, the actual report never been printed out for final sign off.
No, I mean, you can have an individual record be signed, you know, by signed off. Like this one's currently sitting at outstanding, so it hasn't been reviewed or dispositioned, and that would all be done digitally, right? In that context, there would be people who could review or, in fact, final disposition this product, and you can limit that by user access to the scope of who can do that.
Okay, great, thank you. And the second question is regarding the profitability that you just shared a while ago before my question. So when you calculate the percentage of income or what, so the COPQ, do you have anywhere to capture process failures, and then in which way you capture those and then to reflect it into the cost?
So there's some different questions that you might have kind of put together there. One of the items about this is that, you know, in this particular case, we haven't specified a value for the product. That may just be because this part number didn't specify a value, but normally if you had a value for the product and then a percentage based on how far it is through the process, you would end up with a total dollar value that was dispositioned in this case. And if it was dispositioned to scrap, then that's a dead loss, right? If you're going to rework, then you would actually capture the rework hours associated on this particular work order. You'd have a rework operation that would capture those hours, and those would be counted as cost of quality dollars.
So
it could be
automatically captured, is that right?
As long as you log your time against the rework operation, or in fact, a complete new work order. Paul said sometimes you have a remake. I mean, everybody hates the words remake because it means you made it wrong the first time, but you could have a remake work order that was associated to this, and all the costs associated with remaking them would be then rolled into that individual cost and profit element, and you'd see all the costs reflected to remake those parts, and this would become much less profitable.
Yeah. Okay, understood. Thank you very much. It's very good. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Did you have some other hands? I have some other questions coming in as well.
I've got Michael is here, and we can let this roll for a while. We don't have to cut off right at 3. If people are getting something out of it, we don't need to quit, and I'm ready to go.
Okay.
So Michael, Jenny.
Yeah, hi. You maybe kind of started broaching the subject, but is there anything unique about your product or how it's handling all these various documents and pieces of information that are specific to supporting NIST 807 requirements?
Yeah, I mean, the NIST standard, and you said specifically something there, I just cut out a tiny bit. I'm not sure if you're referring specifically to the 800-171 NIST requirement. I mean, obviously there's a huge body of NIST cybersecurity
Pretty
standards.
much that one, the 171. So
yeah, so talking about that, yeah, talking about that, I think we really need to focus on the upcoming CMMC implementation, cyber maturity model certification. I think that's going to be the gold standard for most companies in our space, and most of them are going to be required at level 3, which does incorporate large portions of the NIST 800-171 standard. It's obviously not 100% complete in that area, meaning that not all those NIST requirements are necessarily reflected in the CMMC. But in terms of all of those requirements, ProShop is in the current version of the software, I'd say natively, meaning no extra work on your part, natively, 96, 97% compliant. You may have to have a process control to fully meet the standard in 1 or 2 areas, depending on your business model. But we plan to be level 3, 100% native compliance, meaning no extra work from your end in context to ProShop. I just want to be clear that in order to be compliant as a business, all software you use, not just ProShop, has to meet that standard. And we've developed a tool, and it should be coming out maybe the end of, or the middle or the end of this coming quarter, that will help people walk through that process just as though it were something like a quality management system implementation. So that's what we call a standards implementation process, a SIP process. And that'll help you as a business take templates we've created, utilize ProShop fully to meet those requirements, and then extend that across the rest of your business in all the other softwares you use, because ProShop is likely to be maybe only half of the total software you use. You've still got email, and you've still got, signing on to the McMaster-Carr website, right? So you got to trace all those things, and they have to be NIST compliant for you to be NIST compliant.
Thank you.
Yeah, deep conversation there. Do you have any more hands, Dale? I've also got a couple questions here.
Yeah, I've got, once you go ahead and do any of your questions, I've got Matthew Coyne on here as well that's interested.
Yeah, so we talked about this equipment module, and Dagan, you had talked about using the equipment module. One of the questions is gauge calibration, gauge tracking, and we do have this entire equipment module which clearly covers exactly that kind of thing. I mean, like you look at calipers or what's that?
My caliper 3034. It's
this one here. Yeah. Okay. Oh, should have got that. Yeah, so basically what we're looking at here is, a particular, a particular element that's of a calibration, and calibration is actually really the wrong word.
Kelsey.
Yeah.
You're showing part of your secret server on the screen.
Oh dear. Thanks. That's great. It should be only showing that. What are you seeing now?
Just ProShop.
Interesting. So it's not limiting it to that particular screen. Okay. That's a little bit unfortunate. I was not expecting it to do that.
4K TV as his monitor, and it's kind of complicated for sharing sometimes.
Yeah, I've got a lot going on. I've got the meetings over in certain portions, and I didn't want to make it too big for your element. What I was going to say, I'm just going to fill this in so that I can.
You could take over, Kels, and show a calibration thing over here too. But if you got that, yeah, there's the pictures now.
Yeah, so basically what we're talking about is, the difference between calibration and validation. If you're actually in the business of recalibrating equipment, meaning changing how they actually would scale up and down, that's a different, mechanical skill set and sometimes a programming skill set. But in validation, we do that all the time against NIST standards, and you can actually see through the history all of the different things and times. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Yeah, the history of the piece of equipment, you can get that. I'll just grab that, put that in this. Sorry. With the, with all of the different times this has been calibrated over the history of the gauge, and then all of the things it was gauged against. So you can see there's other like gauge blocks and other things that would be used to actually trace the NIST traceability of this particular equipment all the way back to its original source and NIST traceable document from the manufacturer or from an external source.
Gauge block 237 does have certs attached to it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right. So then we're talking about this gauge block set, right? And basically when we probably first purchased this, that was something that we definitely had.
The outsourced one.
Yeah, so this PDF is the one that we're gonna have as like, oops, not that PDF. This is
the second equipment item that has the outsourced gauge calibration.
This one, right here.
No, rock again.
Okay, sorry. This one here, this one.
That's the one, yeah.
Right, okay. I am putting this link in because I keep getting the pop-up, which you guys don't see. So that's why I'm copying that in there, is because my pop-ups aren't being displayed on our screen.
Like a quarter of it.
Yeah, I know.
It does work.
Yeah, so this would be, traced right back to the initial cert that came with the gauge blocks or whatever. Yeah, sorry about that. A little bit cumbersome with not seeing the pop-ups. Okay, did we have some other questions? Oh yeah, there was one about splitting time, and I just wanted to cover that, pretty quickly and easily. That, and Dagan, I know that since you guys process a lot of work, in flow, you have a lot less need for time splitting, but I'm sure you must in many situations have people working on.
Yeah, the 5-axis work cell you saw was a great example of one operator was running either 2 or 3 of those machines. So absolutely it's something that we do through time tracking, which you're about to show.
Yeah, so basically what we're seeing when we go into a time tracking record is, you can be logged into multiple things. So in this case, I'm already logged or still logged in to 3 different other jobs. And I could do a small percentage of onto a new job. I'm going to do 20%, setup on this new work order that I'm going on. I could either force the log out with the rest of them, or I could keep them running and just say, no, I'm not going to log out anything else. I'm going to do 4 jobs at once. And you can log into that. It's warning me that I have process development and that maybe I'd like to explore that. I won't at the moment. But then it's telling me, yeah, these are all the things that I could, or that I am currently running at the same time or setting up. So yes, it does support all of that from multiple perspectives on multiple jobs, on multiple pieces of equipment.
There's a question.
We have Michael Jenny here. Are you ready for another question, Kelsey?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. I'm unmuting Michael. Go ahead, Michael. Glad to have you today.
You already hit me up on the NIST, so I think it's someone else's turn.
All right.
Thank you.
Gotcha. All right, buddy.
One thing
Kelsey,
that
do you
did
have any other questions?
Yeah, one thing that did come through just recently was how do all costs expenses get captured in GL accounts in the ProShop accounting system? One of the things that ProShop definitely does is a huge amount of financial explanation, financial understanding. We have very high level ability to look at the entire company and its profitability all the way down to net profit of one work order. But one thing ProShop is not is accounting software. And when I say that, what I mean is very literally, we don't manage the accounts themselves. So ProShop has no idea what your bank balance is, or what your credit card reconciliation is going to do. So ProShop doesn't do accounting at that level. We partner with different accounting softwares to do that kind of work. And so right at the moment, we have 4 or 5 flavors of accounting integration based on what you're most familiar with or what you're interested in that we support. But that's where we would actually integrate with those particular platforms to send the relevant information like invoices and bills and clock time for employees, for payroll systems, and those kinds of WIP and inventory valuation numbers, all of those kinds of things that accounting packages want to have, and they want to have them in specific GL ledgers. That being said, it's pretty straightforward to send like an invoice over to something. If you're on an invoice for a particular product, this one's already been added to the accounting package, but you can see straight up that when we choose this, I'm getting a little bit, am I still showing? Yeah, okay, you're not seeing other screens. We're getting a list of accounts directly from the accounting software. These are not in ProShop. There's no list of accounts in ProShop, but there is right here a list of accounts from the accounting package that we could choose from and be like, oh, let's do sales or product income. So I just wanted to be clear that although ProShop is not an accounting software, we definitely have a high degree of overlap and send a lot of things that way.
There's a good little video in our video library that shows a workflow from packing slip through invoicing into QuickBooks Online. People want to check that out. So that's actually your question. Yes, we integrate with QuickBooks Desktop, mostly the flavors, and then QuickBooks Online also.
Yeah, and then we do some flavors of Sage as well. So those are some of the flavors we handle. Accounting flavors. I don't know, has it got that taste in your mouth, Paul?
Yeah.
The question earlier about inventory moves from Alan.
Sorry, from Alan.
Maybe just pulling up the inventory table for that 411 part again. That has some.
Sure. Yeah, sure. We can just take a look at the inventory table. Yeah, so sorry, I was just looking to see if I could find that question because I must have somehow overlooked it in the chat.
255. How do you track inventory moves?
Okay. Yeah, so basically you can see that when this product was built, it was for a specific number, in this case 50 pieces, but 10 extra were sent into inventory. So that's why we have this 10 here, is 10 were sent into inventory as surplus. Oh, I'm sorry, 52. Two extra. Yeah, we serialized 10 of them. But of those 52 that were sent into inventory, 10 have gone on to other work orders and been pulled out either to ship directly or maybe into higher level assemblies. And we could actually look at that and say, oh yeah, this is actually going on to a higher level assembly, a different part number, right? And so they were pulled in smaller lot quantities with 17 remaining. So this is an easy way to trace this, and that's how the product traceability works too. If we opened that particular work order and looked at the bill of materials, right, then we pulled out that machine component, right, that injection housing machine, and we added some locking inserts, and then shipped it as a final assembly. And if you would print the first article paperwork for this, it would include all the certs for that, right? So if we just went to, well, actually, we'll just go here. The first article master, we can look again at that part number accountability type form here, and you can see that, here's that part number that's been pulled as a subcomponent. And if we look at the product accountability, it's got, the aluminum bar and then characteristics that are associated with it. In this particular case, only for the top level assembly, but you can print an entire sub BOM as well. So you could print the paperwork for all the subcomponents. Do you think that covers some of that, Paul, or did you have something else you wanted me to kind of take a look at?
If you want to raise your hand, Alan, you could if we have some more detail on that.
For sure.
There
was another question.
Are there more here? A lot of them.
Hey,
Yeah,
hi Paul, how you doing?
Good.
Very good.
All right. So I don't know if you know how big of a shop we are. We have a large warehouse as well. So that's what one of my questions is how are when our forklift drivers are moving stuff around from shelf to shelf and just rearranging, we want to be able to see a history of where they moved the stuff from, because a lot of times they'll lose stuff, especially in our current system. So I was just wondering if there's anything that I could see, like a move from this shelf to another another shelf or the other portion of the warehouse.
Yeah, so yeah, go ahead, Paul. Well,
Right.
I was just going to say that, I mean, there's definitely options for allowing you to move inventory, to any location that you would want to move it to. But we don't try and track that, like I said, with like an RFID sort of process right now, in terms of, physical location in the company. So that's not currently part of ProShop is geolocation kind of tracking.
But if we have like a G5, right, and they're all of a sudden moving it over to L1 shelving,
Mm-hmm.
I won't be able to see that history, that move, would I?
You could add in the
yeah,
but
you could definitely move it right here, and you'd see it in the edit log history of this particular type of transaction. But that would be more like a historical type transaction than than just seeing right here, the last 5 places it was or something like that. So it would show you the current, right, as it is now.
Okay.
Good.
There was one other question. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Was that good?
That's it for now.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
I had one other question come up through the thing that I thought might be worth looking at, which was sorry, where'd it go here? Was just a question about point of sale, and it was specifically something to do with, do we do point of sale type stuff? And the short answer to that is no. ProShop's not really a point of sale kind of system. We don't have like an online web store or sort of a walk in through the front door, do a kind of point of sale stuff. This is mostly targeted for, whoops, that's probably saw that, manufacturers that are doing B2B type sales. Typically, we do have some retail style POs which we could look at, which are more intended for like dealer or distributor networks of OEM products. So Paul mentioned stuff around the saxophone mouthpieces, and we developed an entire small but ecosystem around being able to specify a particular client as a dealer or a retail sale of some kind. So when we look at contacts, we've got a bunch of different types here, but you can see that some of those will be dealers or vendors like this one, right? And they'll actually get those retail type POs, which is be something that's not POC, but intended for that kind of application.
There's a question earlier that we kind of missed. It was when you see multiple parts near tolerance, would you possibly override in-place inspection or maintenance schedules? And you can specify the frequency of any of your in-process inspection, but there's nothing stopping you from doing more inspection than that. If you've specified 10% like Trulife does, but you want to do 20% on this work order, you absolutely could just double it up and do twice as many. There's no problem with doing that.
Yeah, it's definitely not limiting you on your inspection criteria. It's recommending the frequency that you've specified, but it's not saying if you get to the end of having inspected the right quantity for a lot that you have to stop now. Yeah, for sure not that. In terms of running at the edge of tolerance, we do have the capability to kind of see what that's trending like, just in a simple kind of X-bar style chart, but that isn't necessarily limiting your ability to do the inspection.
All right. Well, I'm gonna hey Brian, why don't you take yourself off mute? Brian Canfield's here, and I think Brian had a question earlier about really the percentage. How much more efficient is a company when they move into an ERP paperless system? And
That's
so
a
that'd be
great
a great one to tackle here on the end of the call here.
Yeah, that varies a lot depending on how good or bad they were to start with. Of course, shops run the gamut. I'd say when I talk to customers and do video testimonials with them, it is not uncommon for them to tell us that they've increased their shop floor throughput, the actual dollars shipped off the shop floor, by as much as 25% with the same staff, same equipment.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, one other thing that I think is a really critical number, I mean, that's obviously a bit mind-blowing, but one other number that I think ProShop tracks specifically, and I think that we always focused on when we were running ProCNC, was what we call total company effectiveness. So since you could see by part of what was happening, and Dagan was doing a great job of showing you some of the ways in which things are done, and even some non-conventional stuff, if stuff is being done, say, more by machinists, and I mentioned the packaging one, the question is that overall a savings? Are you actually saving time and energy? And I said, yeah, I thought you were, but how does that actually play out in ProShop? And ProShop chooses to show you things on sort of a net efficiency, which means that you look at the entire organization and you say, well, yeah, we don't have any packaging people anymore because we don't do that anymore. How much did that save us, even though we're seeing a decrease maybe from machinists machining parts? And so total company effectiveness, which is basically what we would consider that, is a real factor. And I know that because people have been able to seriously reduce overhead positions, things that might have otherwise been lumped in under overhead, they actually see significant gains to their bottom line, even if the total productivity of the shop, feels like it hasn't changed. Like, oh, we're only putting 5 or 10% more through, and we managed to cut out of that process some non-value added time and put in and substitute that in for value added.
Nice.
So a couple more questions here, and I do we need to start wrapping things up.
Yep.
Yeah, there was one here about, does the program go into estimating? And yes, ProShop is very deep on estimating. There's a ton to know about estimating, and we go a long way with estimates for sure. Obviously, one of the things, let's go down a level here. Let's go to this one here. We'll go to this estimate. So this is an estimate for that machined component that includes a few different milling operations, possibly even some different routing options. And we go a long way with this in terms of being able to detail it down to exact percentages of labor you're applying to any operation. So it isn't just like, 2 hours of setup and 10 minutes a piece. We really dial it down to this machine at 25% labor, and this machine is charged out at $50 an hour, right? As opposed to this one, which is only 43, or this one, which is 20. So you can go a long way by operation detailing all of that out. You can look at, raw material costs, outside processing charges, including, like here, we've hit a minimum lot charge for 10. And then by the time we got up to 25, we've exceeded that minimum lot charge. Markups on that type of product. So you can say, yeah, we're going to mark up this a certain amount for our out-of-pocket costs. And then we've included scrap rate as part of your estimating costs. So scrap's not just sort of, a by the by. It's actually included in our complete cost breakdown, which shows you then everything to do with this part. All of the, if we had to make an extra one in order to get that far, that's included in the time element. And depending on how you do this in prototyping and other things, that can be hugely important. So yeah, we get a full breakdown and then included in that, base profit margins or even top line markup, or something that like a sales rep might include. So
Dagan was talking about how their estimators are doing all this remotely from home the last 3 months, and then that they're basically building the router as well. So that feeds right into planning, who will verify those router steps, make any tweaks they want to make to it, and then issue the work orders.
Yeah, and that detailed planning, especially on new runs, is something that programmers are often involved in, right? This whole part programming and modeling portion is somebody's going to spend 4 hours making sure that that is not only planned correctly, but has, the right kind of programs applied to it. So that's all stuff that you can put in here. including, you know, specific times that you may not want to charge the customer, but you know the floor is going to take, and that builds trust between estimating and the shop floor. You know, the worst thing for shops is when people start ignoring the targets because they're always like, estimating is always wrong. And they're not wrong for pricing. That's how we're winning the work. But they might be not conveying their intent, which in this case is this adder time, that it will take you that extra 4 hours to do this, but that's okay. We've covered that in some way or other.
We can do one more question and then wrap it up. And that's someone asked about when a machine operator is logged into more than one machine, how do we determine the labor cost per machine? And basically, yeah, do you want to just handle that one, Kels?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, basically on the labor cost, just to be clear, we're only taking a percentage of the time they're in on that job. So they're running 2 jobs, let's say 70-30. It's going to take their total labor cost for those hours that they worked, and they're going to put 30% on this job and 70% on this job. In terms of the machine hours, the machine was, you know, fully captive, we call it. Even if it wasn't running every single moment of that time, no other job could have snuck in there in the middle of someone else's time tracking. So the machine itself was being utilized for that time tracking, and that's included in the direct overhead rate for that particular machine. So you can actually assign direct overhead rates to specific resources, because obviously some resources are more expensive than others, and then ProShop assigns that direct overhead based on the time tracking entry at 100% directly to the job.
Great
Yeah,
question.
that's why we really try and focus and tell people that ProShop's focused on true net profit costing. If you're looking for, you know, standardized costing or, you know, some of those other things, sure, maybe we can give you that number, but that's not where the rubber hits the road. It's like, is this job profitable? This time we ran it with exactly the people who worked on it, the machines it actually ran through, and the amount of time it really took us, and the raw material price we got this time. If that's what you really want to know, that's where ProShop comes in.
That's great.
Brian?
Kelsey, Paul, Brian, thank you all so much. It's been incredibly enlightening to see what the future of manufacturing can be like, and the tools that are available out there that can really help people take manufacturing to the next level and become much more efficient and effective in what they do. So thank you all for taking the time to share with us today. And thank you all that have joined us on here. If this is your first time on a PNAA Factory Fridays, Pacific Northwest Aerospace Alliance is a nonprofit organization that really helps the aerospace industry become more competitive. And so we do that through a variety of different ways: networking opportunities, bringing market intelligence, training and education, and B2B opportunities. So each week we've got a couple of virtual events, this one being one of them. Also our weekly webinars, Tuesdays at 12 p.m. And you can visit our website, pna.net, to learn more about those. This Tuesday at 12, we're going to be having our weekly webinar with Rachel Peterson from Government Operations at Boeing. She's going to be providing a general update on the market, as well as Boeing, what they're doing internally with COVID-19. So make sure to check that out. And yeah, thank you all for being here. We look forward to connecting with all of you. And if you'd like to learn more about PNAA and the membership that we offer here in the Northwest, please reach out to Dale or myself or anybody on the website. So once again, Brian, Paul, Kelsey, thank you so much. Dale, thanks for your help putting this together today. Appreciate it.
And I really want to thank Dagan too for offering up Trulife Engineered Solutions and taking us through the whole works, and for working with us on making the software better. Appreciate that too.
Yeah, that was great. Very good tour. Thank you.
Tumbler and a machine bottle opener for you.
There you go.
Where's the scotch? Come on.
Happy Friday. There we go.
Happy Friday, everybody.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks,
right,
Kelsey, Paul, Brian.
Bye.
Have a great weekend.
You too.